What's up, friends? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Be Less Unfit Performance podcast, YouTube show. You're going to notice over the course of these videos that, I've changed a lot. I filmed these over the course of 2 years. So as my life changed, you see my body change. One. Two, I changed the way I was going to use these videos. They were going to only be an add-on to the program. Instead, I wanted everybody to be able to have this great information, and so now they're live. If you have any questions or want to know more about the Be Less Unfit program, please head over to sampog.com or belessunfit.com to learn more and check it out. In the meantime, please enjoy this amazing show and learn more about our guests by going down to the comment section bio area and click what they have going on. I'm so blessed that they said yes to helping me out, and I want you to go learn from them as well. So enjoy the show, have a great day, and please remember to subscribe. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Be Less Performance program. I'm your host, Sam Pogue. I'm sitting down here in beautiful Boulder, Colorado with my friend Adam Bornstein. You've seen this guy pop up all over in the fitness industry over the last 12 years, from Shape Magazine to Men's Health as a fitness editor, to Muscle and Fitness, to contributing for Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he finds himself now running as the Chief of Fitness or Chief of Nutrition and Content for Ladder Sport, a sports nutrition lifestyle company, backed by some of the leaders in the industry, supported by Arnold Schwarzenegger and LeBron James. And he's just a guy that really stands up for high quality and really focusing on making sure that there's quality in the market. And that way we're not getting duped by the supplement companies that are out there just trying to make a buck. And I really appreciate the way he holds himself in the market and what he stands for and how he tries to represent himself. He also has two different businesses in Pen Name and 212 that he really focuses on developing other people, which is really awesome. And I'm just so excited to chat with him more about nutrition and learn more about how we can be better with our nutritional habits and what expectations we have for ourselves when we're deciding to take that investment and make more of an effort in bettering our health and wellness and our bodies and the way they feel. So, Mr. Bornstein, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Really excited to chat with you. Would love to learn a little bit about why nutrition? How did you get into it? And why is this a passion that you spent your entire career focusing on helping others?
Yeah, I think like most passions, sometimes they're just accidental. I've been interested in fitness and nutrition for a while, but like so many great ventures, it just started with a personal interest. And if you really want to go all the way back down the rabbit hole, it probably starts in third grade dodgeball. No, that's not true. It began really my sophomore year of high school. I broke my back in a high school basketball game. And 2 years later, or a year and a half later, I broke my back again. And the second time I broke my back, I know, two broken backs. It's quite the accomplishment. The future that was laid out for me is not one that I was too fond of. Because of the fractures and a couple bulging discs and very, very early arthritis. You don't see many arthritis in many 16, 17-year-olds. I decided to become fascinated with the human body, both on the fitness and anatomy side and then on the nutrition side. And for such a long time, it was really a hobby. I became certified as a trainer and did these things, but I didn't see myself in that space until many years later. But the desire to understand my own body so I could help myself put me in a position where I realized there are many people, and it didn't have to be a broken back, people who were probably suffering from things that held them back, whether it was an injury, a misunderstanding, or some other problem, especially because, I mean, both sides of the coin, the fitness and nutrition, are really difficult to master. Not overly complicated or complex on the basic level, but difficult to master. The nutrition stuff is really hard simply because food is delicious, and there are so many times in a day in which we can eat, and there is so much conflicting information that, for me, my job more than anything has been to try and help drown out that noise. I say that more than anything, I've tried to be a translator in the industry so that when the salacious headline comes in, you don't necessarily jump, because nutrition is an industry of constantly overreacting to things, and that overreaction sends you down another path that oftentimes leads to more frustration and failure. And at some a really bad relationship with food, two, a really bad relationship with your body, and three, a really bad relationship with your own self-confidence that you can change, because it becomes like that, what they would call in psychology, learned helplessness. You do the same thing over and over so many times and you fail, you ask yourself why. And I'm just, it is very rewarding to remove so much of those things that frustrate people, so many of those things that confuse people, and give them control. When you give someone control over the foods that they eat, and whether it's to get in great shape, whether it's to have more energy, whether it's to sleep better, whether it's to just feel like you're improving your overall health, or whether it's some aesthetic goal or performance goal, whatever it might be, when you do that, it's a game changer, because it is a daily habit and pattern that people do. There's no way to get around eating. And I always say that, like, when you can do things that are bigger than yourself, those are the things that are always worth chasing.
100%. I love that you use this translator analogy. And you know, I've had a hard time trying to bring this together. I've been working on this blog for a couple months now that I've tried to like wrap this up. And I'm sitting here going, I've been in the industry at a pretty deep level for 12 years. And I see things on the front end coming down nutrition. I kind of know what's what now, but like, if I was a consumer seeing all this come through on Men's Fitness and magazines, I'm like, I wouldn't know what the fuck to do, right? Keto, carnivore, vegetarian, like, how do you even filter through the noise? Are there some principles that we can understand in terms of like whatever you're seeing in the market, you can kind of just abide by? Or how do we start developing a lens of perspective that we can internalize for ourselves and start making better decisions?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I think like there are probably more layers than anyone would like to admit, because there are so many. It's like religion or politics. There's so many different beliefs that you strip it all away, most people agree on like 80% of things and like disagree on 20, and like, but the 20 is like where people will just go to war about it. I would say, one, if it sounds too good to be true, or if you get in that scapegoating mentality, if we are blaming every single thing under the sun on one issue, whether it's a macronutrient or lectins or dairy or gluten, or but basically everything has been vilified at some point in time. When it gets to that like absolute talk, Star Wars will be like, only a Sith speaks in absolutes. That's like that's the mindset. Like, yeah, absolute talkers are big red warning sign. Like, all right, what do you got to sell? Not that like there's not some truth in this, but like there's no extreme here. Like, what you need to know is people have researched diets for decades. People slice and dice, and we're constantly learning. Science is designed not to get answers necessarily, but to create more detailed questions. Every single scientific experiment begins with a hypothesis, which is a question, and every scientific, completed study ends with additional questions. So much of what we want to learn when something is, I would say, if it's absolute, take it with a grain of salt. If it's brand new, take it with a grain of salt, because science is determined by both validity, is what you are testing actually being proven, and reliability. If you replicate it over and over and over again, do we get the same outcome? So just because we see something once doesn't mean we should overreact. It would be like the belief that like you wake up one day and you decide not to brush your teeth and you have the best fucking day ever. Maybe when you don't brush your teeth, something in the cosmic forces of the universe will set you up to just be amazing. Or maybe the conditions and reasons and everything that happened allowed that to happen. And we have to realize that within studies, things are interesting. They're worth us exploring more, but we can't overreact. So avoid the absolutes. If it's something brand new, take interest in it. Maybe you want to experiment, but take it with a grain of salt. And then you have to, there's the third layer, which is so important. We're just going to start with like a rule of three here. It's consider, how well does this fit my lifestyle? I do believe when you try to accept any type of change, change comes with difficulty, as in when you are going from something you are used to doing to something new, there's going to be some friction. We are creatures of habit. We strive for homeostasis. We do what makes us comfortable. So if you're going to do something that's going to be different, expect a little bit of friction in the process. But there should be enough self-awareness that you can step back and look at something. And if you're someone who eats pasta every single day and you come from an Italian family and this is part of heritage and culture and who you are, and you're sitting there being, I should really take on a ketogenic diet, I would ask you, is this the best idea for a sustainable approach? Because what we know about diet is this: what is sustainable and what you can do consistently is what is going to win out. They have compared the high carb to the low carb and your Mediterranean style diet to your more paleo style diet. And what always wins out, if we get away from the finer details, what always wins out is what you can follow consistently that will keep you in some sort of caloric deficit so you can lose weight. You can determine what it is about the diet that's allowing you to be in that deficit, what's allowing you to essentially eat less than you burn, and burn not necessarily off of exercise, but an entire day. But you got to factor in the lifestyle stuff, that behaviorally you have to ask yourself, what is the likelihood that I will be able to do this for the next 12 months? It is a wonderful question to ask yourself. Can I do this for 12 months? And it doesn't mean you necessarily have to follow the diet for 12 months, but if you can't, you should pause and be like, why am I starting this in the first place? Because otherwise, if you're going to do it for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, average person is on a diet for about 4 to 6 weeks and they're off the diet for 12 to 14 weeks. It's not a good ratio for success. You are off your diet more than twice as long as you were on it. If you're looking at it and you're like, this is just going to be misery, it's never going to work, don't do it. Don't buy into this one size fits all magic bullet mentality, because there's so many different diets that work. There are so many different ways to do it. So don't think there needs to be just one.
No, I 100% agree. I love it. Like finding the one that works for you. And what I love about, Adam giving this message too is, the guy runs 20 different companies, I think. Was it 20, 25? He's got a family and he's got 2 young kids. So a lot of you who are going through this and trying to look at fitness, who are like, oh, my life is not the same as like me, who's a 33-year-old single dude. Like I have the ability to control every variable in my life. It doesn't mean I don't want pizza. It doesn't mean I don't want burgers, but it's easier for me to control those things. But you got kids at home, you got a business to run, you got a family. How do you balance all of that together to make sure you're staying consistent with travel and everything, to make sure you're staying on track with things? Is there a strategy there?
There's definitely a strategy in there, and some of it's just adjusting. I've written many books, and one of the books focused on intermittent fasting like 6-7 years ago. I feel like I was ahead of the curve. I almost wish it came out maybe like 2-3 years ago. But the book did fine on its own. And it was something that I liked. I liked intermittent fasting, not because of necessarily any mythical beliefs on fat loss, of which there are none. It's a good tool, because if you shrink the number of hours you can eat within a day, it's harder to overeat. Doesn't mean you can't do it. You go ahead and eat an entire pizza. Well, there goes your macros for the day. It's just that it's an easy construct for people to understand. When I had my first son, I wanted to have breakfast with him. Like the memories of having breakfast with my kid were more valuable to me than like waiting for my 8-hour feeding window to begin. And I think having value systems can govern and align, and that plays into the more that the nutrition path that you pick will align with things that fit within your day or your preference, the fewer things that are going to pop up, they're going to make you hate the process. Because oftentimes when it comes to building a habit, you can't hate the process, because otherwise it doesn't work. And then strategically, for me, I'm a big calendar person. I'm a big reminder person. I'm really big on accountability. The way that habits are essentially built is there are 3 components of it. There's a cue, there's the routine, and there's the reward. And rewards can manifest themselves in many different ways. You just don't want the reward necessarily to be like chocolate cake every time, because if your reward is chocolate cake every time, well, it's probably going to undercut the diet. So for me, in terms of me eating and setting reminders, I use my calendar to set reminders and serve as a cue of, oh, I'm going to do this. I should have this meal right now, or here's what I want. Here's what I was thinking I was going to eat. There's the trigger or the reward. So even for me now, so many things, I try and create an incentive that is something that I will inherently value, but won't necessarily derail a diet. Like I will make coffee an incentive or reward where certain things have to be done, whether it's eating or work, and then I don't get the coffee until it's done. And the cue will be an alarm. Cues can be anything else, but if you think of it, it's like if you know that there's a trigger, if you know that there's the behavior, there's the routine, and you know that there's a reward, you can essentially create these mousetraps that becomes very, very easy to replicate. Or as I like to say, building habits is hard. So don't start with 5 or 10, start with 1, and start with one that you feel is very, very easy to accomplish. So much of my research in a past life focused on behavioral change. And the big thing I will always say about behavioral change is that it is founded on this idea is that if you truly want to change your habits and behaviors, you want to make it so easy that it is hard to fail. And I want you to think about that. A lot of people will take on things that are so hard that it feels easy to fail. And these are all based on patterns of reinforcement and mastery. And the more habits that you are able to build on, stronger foundation that you have to take on more complicated habits. So many people will start with these nutrition ideologies that are like super extreme and super complicated. Whereas for me, it always comes back. If I lose my way with business, with kids, with family, I come back like, what's my rule number 1? My rule number 1 is have protein in every meal. If I forget every other thing out there, if I have protein in that meal and have that first, that's that guiding force of it's more metabolically active. It's more likely to leave you satiated, full for a longer period of time. It's the hardest macronutrient, not impossible. Anything can get stored as fat. It's the hardest macronutrient out of proteins, carbs, and fats to be stored as fat. So like if you lose your way, if you have these principles that you can fall back on, that's part of the strategy. And I can look like, okay, am I eating just a bowl of Frosted Flakes, which happens quite often for me? What is my complementary protein source to go along with that? So at least I know that I am enabling those habits that I can come back to and keep me on track.
I love that. And finding a way that works with your lifestyle, because, you know, anybody that has kids or travels like you and I do, and you travel exponentially more than I do, that it like, there's things that derail it. Like when you get off an airplane, the last thing you want to do necessarily is like, I want to go eat vegetables and chicken breast, or you're like, oh, my kids don't want that. Right. Like, and you got to find a way to make it work. Cause like you said, having a meal with your kid is super important. Right. And that's super cherished, but finding a system that still abides by your game that you're playing, and that still allows you to be successful. So that way you don't feel like you let yourself down and then you end up spiraling downward, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, when I travel, unless I'm going to an airport that I absolutely know, and I do have certain places that I frequent enough that I can like, all right, I know where I can get food. In general, I won't eat at all because I know the food options are so bad. I will drink so much water and so much coffee that I'm the guy who's going to the bathroom 63 times on the plane and like, what is wrong with that guy? But that's it. I'm the aisle seat guy, mainly because I know I just had a whole bunch of coffee and a whole bunch of water. And on longer flights, I'll bring protein bars or little things that are fine. But it's like, I know that it's so easy, and we're all human. Like it's really easy once you have that one bad meal to just say, fuck it. That's human nature. And you know what? Sometimes it's okay because like no one meal and no one bad day ever screw things up. So the guilt or the fear, it's like being like, I just had a great workout. I'm going to take the rest of the week off and I'm going to be jacked and swole. It's awesome. Like it doesn't work that way, but it's so funny. No one would ever think that one workout leaves you looking like Arnold in his prime, but like you had a cheesecake and a burger and you're like, I'm a slob, I'm a fat fuck, I'm never going to do anything again.
Yeah.
That's the broken relationship with food that we have to overcome because we think it's that simple. And it's really, really not. But with that said, you got to remove that guilt. You got to remove that restrictive mindset. But you have to have that foresight that if you know you're putting yourself in a situation where you're more likely to have that bad meal, and you know the moment that you have that bad meal, you're more likely to have guilt. And you know the moment you have that guilt, you're more likely to probably say, screw it. And the rest of the week is tossed out and it's just going to be a bad week of eating.
Yeah.
If it happens, okay. But if you can see it, what are you doing about it? So much of nutritional compliance isn't about being 100%. I go by like the 80% rule. Like you want to be good 80% of the week. You should give yourself an allowance to drink and eat because restriction does not work. But so much of it is knowing that like if there's things that you can see, that you can avoid, that you can plan around, all it does is just give you the freedom to choose when you want to eat or do whatever you want. I have pizza every single Friday in my house. It is Pizza Friday every single Friday. My kid doesn't understand days of the week. He's 4 years old. It's Monday. Monday, and he's like, when's it Friday? 4 days. Tuesday comes like, is today Friday? It is not. Friday comes, Pizza Friday. And it's excitement. And I love Pizza Friday. And I love having drinks and doing all of that. But so much of it then is just like creating that fortitude where you can have alacrity, you can have freedom, you can have AC, all these things. And people don't think that way. They think that a healthy diet is one that is just, it's chicken and broccoli all the way wrong. And that is the number one way to fail. Research at the University of Alabama compared people who were eating small desserts daily compared to those who were in complete restriction. And those who had the desserts lost more weight simply because they were more compliant. And they were able to follow the diet for a longer period of time because it didn't make them miserable. So build in that flexibility, but don't leave yourself vulnerable to unplanned but predictable moments when you're more likely to eat less healthy foods.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You know, I wish I got to grow up with a father that, you know, not that I don't love my dad exponentially, but like, you know, that has a ton of nutritional and training knowledge, right? Like I had to get into this game way later in life and kind of figure out as I go. I'm curious with a 4-year-old and a younger one, I don't know how old the youngest one is, but
a year and a half.
How are you educating your kids around nutrition and installing these ideas around them now and just kind of giving them ideas around like, hey, you got to have a vegetable, you got to eat your protein. Because I think that's a really good lesson because we didn't get to grow up with that. So how are you educating kids to where like, oh, what a great way if you're teaching a 4-year-old to do it, you know, a 40-year-old should be able to do it.
Right. It's so funny though, because obviously my older son, Bodhi, is around me enough that he's aware of Ladder and the supplement company that I help for my products. He's like, Dad, is that ladder? Is that protein? And I'm like, yeah, it is. He's like, protein. He goes, muscles. And I'm like,
awesome.
My job is done here.
Yeah.
I can pretty much try. I think getting kids to obsess about food is a really slippery slope because you're a child. And if you have kids stressing about food, they're probably going to stress about food as an adult. So there's the way I think to educate is kids are social learners. Albert Bender, the psychologist, and I'm a psych nerd, believed in social learning theory, which is essentially just observational learning. He had this whole thing where like kids would watch kids like hit a bobo dowel and they'd walk in there and they'd just beat this bobo dowel. And it's just like they learn by what they see because there are different styles of learning, but that's where they're especially strong. So you can reinforce everything you want them to know by how you feed them. So our kids have like little plastic plates that have like 3 compartments and they have like a protein and a vegetable or like a fruit or a carb or something or a fat. It's like, it's just what they see. So I'm not making them worry about macronutrients and I don't know that if they eat their dinner, they get dessert. If they don't eat dinner, I'm not going to force them to eat dessert because I don't want them to have this bad relationship with food where they feel forced. I mean, we've all been there. Like, it's funny. Like, we've all been times where we're not hungry. And yet for some reason we act like all kids are always hungry and they need to eat everything or else like you go to your room and I'm just like, I mean, maybe I always want to eat everything at dinner, but in general, I just love food. You know, I want them to have a good relationship. So I think it's not being dogmatic about it and it's not being too restrictive. Like kids will have sugar cereals, they'll have desserts, but it's something that is in addition to what they eat rather than an expectation. And I just try not to hammer them over the head with it. I just try to make sure that if I know what should be there, I want it to be normal. I don't want a vegetable to look any more weird than a cookie would be. And a lot of people want like the vegetable to be everything and the cookie to be like, no, but like that's how you build a bad relationship. And more likely they'll probably just go for those cookies or be fearful of them. Like the best thing that you can do with diet is create a sense of control over it. And control is created by understanding. So you shouldn't restrict anything in any way, shape, or form. And that's always the reminder for me. I don't want them to be fearful of any type of food. And I would rather have them ask me questions rather than me preach to them. They'll get enough of me preaching with everything else.
I feel like that's probably a similar strategy you would use with an adult, no? Or how would, I mean, you've coached 10,000 millions of people throughout your career. How do you approach nutrition with someone who maybe has had a poor relationship with their nutrition or body composition or food, and you're starting to reinstall these same kind of ideologies to them and help them get better with that relationship?
The harder part with adults is that you have to make them unlearn. kids are a blank canvas, as you will. I really say that whatever you put into a child is what you'll get. Like if you laugh and smile around kids all the time, they're still gonna cry and whine, but they're gonna smile and laugh a lot because again, social breeding theory. They're just mimicking what they see. You fill people up with love and hugs, they're gonna give it right back to you. The way that they deal with their emotions is still going to be the outbreak because they don't understand emotions. Most adults don't understand emotions. It's complicated. That's a whole other rabbit hole, but we don't really teach people mental health. We teach them physical health to a certain extent, but like we don't teach people how to deal with their emotions. Children have no guide to that, and it's overwhelming. So kids are these blank canvas that you can put in. Adults, there's a lot of learned behaviors that you need to unlearn. And there's a lot of probably broken mentality and almost self-deprecating beating up for the things that they do or the things that they believe. So much, again, goes back to, well, how do you start reinforcing more positive behaviors? It's getting people to see the small wins. I always say that the biggest thing with building up towards anything is being aware of your overall goal, but that's an outcome goal. Stressing less on outcome goals and stressing more on process goals. So that is, what are the component levels that someone would need to know is going to lead them to success? Because oftentimes an outcome goal for someone is weight, so they become obsessed with the scale. The problem with the scale is that things don't always move on the scale the way that you want to, sometimes just because it's misleading. Sometimes your scale is broken.
Yeah.
Your scale just sucks. Sometimes you decide to weigh yourself at different times of the day. Sometimes you're really stressed, so you're carrying more weight. Sometimes you didn't sleep enough, so your weight is being carried. Sometimes you traveled the day before, so you're going to be a little bit bloated and carrying water weight. There's so many variations that like a day-to-day scale weight can be very effective, but it can also be very misleading. So I would much rather focus on like, well, what are the process goals of what are you doing? What are the habits that you can learn? What's the thing that you need to master so that even if the scale weight doesn't move, you can say, I'm doing the right thing. So if we go back and you teach them like, I need to eat protein in every single meal. You go back and you would look at, if you're, say, doing meal logs, it's like, oh, the scale didn't move, I failed. Well, let's look at it. Look, you ate protein in every single one of your meals. This is a big win. We can build upon this. You have to take that process level so that people know, so they're educated, so they're empowered, so that when you remove you as a coach, they can function on their own. I say my job as a coach is to be fired because they should learn so much that they can do it on their own. But that means like people need to know how to do it on their own. And it helps them to be able to see that, because a lot of people have in their mind what healthy looks like. And it's oftentimes not in reality what that healthy really is. For instance, most people think you can't eat carbs at all. Like carbs are the devil. Man, carbs are delicious. And there are people who are like, and I'm not to say keto, you can't thrive on that, but carbs are delicious. I love bread. And if I was coaching someone like me, I would never want them to believe that they can't have bread, but you have to unlearn that. Like people will have a fear or a phobia about it. So I try and start with the basic behaviors. What are the things that will add up that if you can master it, we can start building layers of complexity. So it's very similar to a child. It's just the child doesn't have anything to unlearn. They're not afraid of anything. They're just doing what you show them.
I love it. You know, I hear this, and we're getting very much into the psychology of this, which is a lot of coaching in general. Like psychology trumps physiology every single time. But I hear the person in the back going, yeah, I get that. Like, you gotta have a relationship, but like, how many calories am I supposed to eat? How much protein am I supposed to eat? How do I count my macros? Or on the flip side, like, I'm never gonna count my macros. I'm never gonna weigh my food. I'm never gonna give that up. How are you conversing with those people? And how are you helping them understand this game?
Yeah, I think you always meet the person where they are. It's not my job to tell someone what's best for them. It's their job to tell me what's best for them. But I want to know why. Why are you so obsessed with the macros? Why are you so obsessed with a weight? Or why are you so afraid of tracking this stuff? The why will govern everything. And if you really want to understand people, you need to understand who they are. You need to understand what they want to do. But fundamentally, you need to understand what they are thinking, how they are thinking about things, so that they can ask the questions themselves. My job isn't to question you to like play devil's advocate and make you question what you believe. It's actually to make you reinforce why you are doing what you're doing, because oftentimes people will think they need to do something without having any reason behind it. And that's so important. People ask me why I do what I do, why I run the companies that I run. Hey, Adam, if you're all about this stuff, why would you go and help formulate stuff for Ladder, a supplement company? Aren't supplements bad? I'm like, not really. The way that most supplements are done are fundamentally bad because people don't test them. They lie about what's in them. They create products that people don't need, or they create products that people need, but at a dose or amount that is so low that you will never get a real effect. So supplements have a time and place. They're supplemental. They can fill gaps. They can support you. They can create convenience. The majority of supplements are bullshit, but there are a few that can have a real value, that have plenty of scientific support, both from being valid and being reliable. And we know the dose or amount that should be in there. And we know that we should send it to a third party and test it and spend a lot of money making sure that the label is accurate, that there is no banned substances in there, and there are no dangerous toxins and metals, so that when you put this stuff in your mouth, you can be reassured that it's going to be good. That to me is a gap and a problem in the industry. It's not everyone needs a supplement. It's, hey, you people who want them and are interested in them, if you're interested, why do you want them? No, you don't need them. You definitely, you can benefit. This would be great. Here's what you should be looking for. I would love for you to buy Ladder because I'm biased because it was great, but look for the principles behind it. Look for the NSF certification. Look for what product's in there. Look for the ingredients that are in there. Make sure that there's actually value there rather than spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on something that's never going to give you any value at all. And it should be the same thing. Why do I want to do macros? Well, what's the value behind it? Why are you doing it? Why are you obsessing over it? Understand. And then it's easier to meet that person and to say, oh, this all makes perfect sense. Here's where you would set your macros. Here's a great way to track it. Or actually, it seems like a terrible idea. It's very, very obsessive, where you just have the construct of eating all wrong.
Yeah.
Here is what it is. Do you still want to count macros? It's not my job, and it's really no coach's job to tell someone what to do. It's to help them understand it clearly so they can determine what is best for them. So I never get offended when someone comes out all hot, because they should. I like people with strong opinions. Strong opinions are good. Conviction is what allows you to have that fire to accomplish things that you want. I wish people had more conviction. And I like a little bit of stubbornness, but not so much that you're not willing to question what you're doing and why you're doing it. And in the face of other information, let down your own cognitive biases so that you can make an informed decision. I say it all the time. It's not my job to be right. It's my job to get it right.
I love that.
Sometimes it means admitting they're wrong. There are lots of things that I believed a decade ago, 15 years ago, when I started and all this stuff that was just wrong. And it'd be very easy for let my ego get in the way. And it comes back to like, my job is to help people. And if I'm just trying to sound right, I'm not fundamentally helping people. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. What's wrong is sticking to your old beliefs and not helping people. People will trust you a lot more if you are willing to come forth and admit when you are wrong. Now, if you're wrong all the time, they're just going to stop trusting you because you're never right. You got to be right some of the time for people to trust you. That's just how this works. But no one is perfect, and we should hold ourselves to a high enough standard to always be adjusting, evolving, and learning so that we can help people.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love so much that you went straight to understanding the why. Like, why is that important to you? What do you want to get out of that? Why is that the method that you chose to go down? And I think that's such a great unveiling for people to take a step back and say, because counting, there's nothing wrong with counting calories. I don't particularly love counting my macros and like all the time, but like, you know, it's one of those things to where it's like, oh, if that's what you want to do and you like it, right? What a great way, as long as that's what works for you, right? But the minute it doesn't work for you, you're not going to be successful. And like, as Adam mentioned earlier, it's going to give you that fuck it spiral where you're like, that's not working. I might as well go and have the cake, and I might as well go have the thing. And like you said, you're probably going to be on 12 to 14 weeks of the non-diet and 2 weeks of the diet. And so then you do that tailspin over 52 weeks, you're only actually eating your certain way for 6 weeks, right? So like you never get anything done.
Bad recipe. And it's a great thing to remind yourself when you're trying to find help, whether it's a diet, whether it's a coach, whether it's a program. People get so mad, I would say, about people who disagree with them. And it's like, but when you think about it, you're mad at the person who has the different opinion from you, but you have the different opinion from them. Alignment is so important. You have to find people who have ideas that speak to you. I don't get mad about people who believe in diets that I personally wouldn't follow. I only get mad if they stretch, we'll say, the truth about how it works or how many people it will work.
Yeah.
I don't mind the N equals 1, the idea of like this worked for me, it could work for you. That's fine, as long as you make it clear. There are certain fundamental truths that we know in science to be true. There's a lot that we don't know in science and that we will continue to learn. And some of these people might know stuff that we don't know. And I'll be the first to admit it. It might be the unlock to everything, but until we know, I will not say it with certainty. That also means I won't say with certainty, like, no, this can't work. I'll just say, try it if you want. Here is what I know. Here is what we don't know. You can choose if you want to go down a path of unknown, and it might work great for you. Just know you're going down a path of unknown, of hypotheticals. And it just leads to much more of a coexistence in terms of like ideologies, and the way that goes back to the first question of like, how do you ingest all this information? What I would say is that for better or for worse, so much of nutrition is trial and error. And if you go in knowing that, it doesn't have to be so frustrating. It's not only trial and error, it starts and stops. The way that we gain or lose weight, you will, because your body is always adjusting, you're going to have a period where you are maintaining, where it's not moving, and it doesn't mean you've stopped having progress. It just means that your body is adjusting to your new normal, and then you need to find a new way to push it forward. For most people, I say when they start losing weight, for them at some point to expect 2 to 4 weeks of it to be stagnant. Wait it out, and then after that 2 to 4 weeks goes by, we try and do something new, and if it's not sparking weight loss, then we know that, like, all right, we need to work through this. But this idea of like a set point theory where we go in starts and stops, where people will see the whoosh. It's like, oh, I haven't moved, and then suddenly lose like 8 pounds in a week, and they're like, what did I do in this past week? And what you did was you actually just maintained. You allowed your body to establish its new homeostasis, and now you've been able to move yourself from that. Because think about it, we all have like this weight that we feel like no matter what we do, we're just kind of at. It's like, oh, this is like where my body is. And even if I like go on a bender, it kind of just stays there. I can't move it down or I can't move it up, but it kind of sticks there. And when you find a new weight that you're at, your body has to readjust to that, because your body's all about creating efficiencies. Your body is trying to become more efficient at fueling you, which means it doesn't want to feel depleted. And knowing that going in, for some, it's frustrating. For me, it's freeing. It's freeing to know that it's going to take a little bit of time to work. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean I can't lose weight. It's freeing to know that maintenance is part of it, because I don't have to always like be obsessed with the scale and think that means that what I'm doing isn't working. And it's freeing to know that if your life changes, if your preferences change, if your schedule changes and you decide to change your diet, it doesn't mean that route that you were on before was the only route that was going to take you to where you want to go. And that should be liberating. That should be exciting, because there are so many different things that work. And it's what I wish more people could become. Understand the principles that allow weight loss to work, but be agnostic enough to just appreciate there are a lot of different ways to get it done.
Yeah. I love that you gave that freedom to people to understand that, hey, losing weight is stressful. It's stress on your body, and giving your body a chance to like, hey, chill the F out. Like, you just went through a whole lot of shit on top of like, oh, the coronavirus or your job or your kid or sick or whatever it is. Like, that's all stress. And so like giving your body a chance, like, hey, you didn't drop 4 pounds next month like you did the previous month, but that's because your body's like, oh, it's reacclimating, right? Like, I think that's such an important thing for us to go, okay. That's still progress because our body's reacclimating. But we get so caught up in this mainstream media of seeing bodybuilding and having these amazing physiques, which they work really hard for those physiques. But if you actually know a bodybuilder, they're fucking miserable when they're cutting. And we have all this diet advice floating around and constantly cutting and losing a pound a week. There's just so much information. But really, most people get into like nutrition because they're trying to lose weight. They want to lose fat in some capacity. It's a lot of people's journey into this. With body composition, it's such a tough game to, maintain a 6-pack if that's not your natural body's composition, to maintain 6% body fat. How are you coaching people through that? And what do people need to know about body composition and having a super low body fat percentage? Like, what do people need to know what actually goes into getting and achieving that?
Yeah, I think it's not only what it takes to get and achieve it, it's what it takes to maintain it. And also what they're hoping to get out of it. Is having a shredded 6-pack going to be that much more rewarding than having like shading of abs? Maybe, depending on what your goal is. Maybe some people just want to know that they can do it. And the end goal is to say that they did it and then go back to before. And if that's fine, if they know that beforehand, but it's like, what is the outcome? Again, it goes so much back to that why, and then understanding what does that journey really look like? Do you know how lean 6% is? Because 6% is real lean. And that's razor sharp. That's like a striation growing inside your striation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not only the journey of getting there, it's what you have to go through psychologically to do there. It's, yeah, you're going to be hungry a lot. You're going to have moments where you don't feel motivated. You feel miserable. Sex drive is very, very likely to drop or be affected. And it's just like, it's fine to pursue these goals, but you should be aware of what comes with it. I think knowing is the most powerful thing, right? Like expectations can be different, can be difficult, but awareness can be a beautiful thing, because if you go in understanding what you can anticipate, it makes it easier to deal with it. And it really applies to anything in life. I remember when I got my job at Men's Health, and I was fortunate enough to have a mentor, Ted Spiker, who without a doubt I would not have achieved really anything, I think, without him. He really created a lot of opportunity, and such a selfless, wonderful person who I am forever grateful, as well as many other people who have given me opportunity. He was a senior editor at Men's Health, has written so many books. The guy's like just wildly talented. And he's like, when you go to Men's Health, he's like, I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. You're going to write those first stories, and you're going to get it back, and it's going to be a bloodbath. If there's going to be edits, that's just going to look like it was like a civil war all over the paper. Like back then, you would still get some hand edits. Every track changes weren't like that big at the time. You'd still get people who are like writing, they drop it on there, and you're just like, oh my goodness. He's like, what's going to happen is you're going to question, do I even belong? He's like, I can't tell you how many people have gone to Men's Health and gone through, what can only be called just like, it's eye-opening. You are going through initiation, and he's like, don't use it as a sign to think that you're bad, because most people will quit, or they're just like, it gets in their head. Use it as a sign of like, all right, here's what you gave me. Here's what you need to, here's like the tips, the cues, the keys of how you're going to get better and how you're going to dominate, because you do belong here. Otherwise you wouldn't be getting these notes in the first place. And he was dead on. I got there and it was awful. And the first reaction was, I'm not a writer.
Oh, wow.
I'm not good enough at this. Maybe I don't understand. And I'm not only not a good enough writer, maybe I don't understand enough about like fitness. Because sometimes at Men's Health, they would send it off to like some more advisors, and you get brilliant people like Bill Hartman would look at stuff, like Eric Cressy, and like these guys like understand anatomy so well. And you're like, well, what about this, this, and this? And I'm like going through anatomy books. I'm like, I'm stressing now. This stuff, where I don't even, is that in the body? Is that in the human body? I've never even heard of that before. What's happening? And it's just like, you sit there, and if I didn't have that, it could have been very, very easy for me to be, I'm not cut out for this.
Yeah.
But I was ready for it, and I still had that initial feeling, but I'm like, I can power through this.
Mm-hmm.
Got this. It's the same way with the diet. You should go in knowing exactly what sacrifices you're gonna have to make, exactly how difficult it's going to be, exactly what it's going to take once you get there, the bounce back, the psychological mindfuck that will create when you see yourself really, really lean, and when you start getting away from that, how it can very, very easily mess with your mind, especially if it's at a level of leanness that you're just not going to be able to maintain. 99.9% of people are not going to be able to maintain 6% body fat. You can get there. You ain't maintaining that without like constantly being miserable and potentially putting yourself in a dangerous situation. Knowing all of this isn't meant to dissuade anyone. It's meant to make the journey easier. It's meant for them to understand and then ask, and then so they can ask, well, why am I doing it? If they want to take all that on, great. I got your back. Let's go do it. Let's go get shredded. Let's get the striations on striations. Let's take a million pictures and you celebrate it if that's what you want to do. If that, for whatever reason, I'm not here to judge someone's goals, but I am here to make them aware of what it will take, it as well as the potential risks. Not everyone goes through that, and some people, if they know they're going to go through that, can prepare themselves for it. Yeah. But that is your responsibility as a coach or a nutritionist to almost like reframe what this stuff is, because a lot of us just like pursue those goals for no reason, or we sacrifice more than we were willing to give up. And I didn't even know that. I got like really lean at a couple points early in my life, and I was just like, I just want to be shredded and walk around abs. And it was like, the most eye-opening thing is when I went on dates with my now wife, and it was the best thing that ever happened, because here I was, this like fitness professional, but I wasn't able probably to relate to people as well, because I love working out. I could train if I wanted to multiple times a day. I didn't have all the like the responsibility that I have now, but like I also loved eating healthy foods. I have very, very strong, it comes in limited supply, but willpower when it would come. I love, love, love dessert, but I can also resist it. But when I met my wife, I was like, all the things that she liked doing, I wouldn't have been able to share with her. And who knows what that relationship would have been. Not to say that she wouldn't have respected and loved me for who I was, but how many experiences and moments would we have not have shared if I was just so dogmatic that I didn't have room, or I didn't understand that there could be room for that. I could maybe be 9 or 10% and not 6%, but like, is that extra 3% worth like having dessert and beers and stuff? And to me, 100 times over. Maybe not to someone else, but that's where it gets down, knowing yourself, knowing your values, and then being able to put it in the greater context. Because within its own little tunnel, 6% sounds sexy. Because it is, maybe for some people.
Yeah.
Within the greater context of life, maybe it doesn't. And oftentimes when we look at goals, we just get so focused on that. It's almost like a myopic focus that we don't consider it within our ecosystem of our life, who we are, with what we do socially, and the impact that it can have. Not that your friends wouldn't like you, but like, how are you going to feel if you're out with your friends and you're never the one drinking? If you're never the one having dessert, how is that going to make you feel? They're still going to love you. They're going to make fun of you. Just prepare for it. You're going to you're going to become the butt of 80% of jokes, and there will probably be a little bit of jealousy. Oh man, I wish I could do what that person does.
Yes.
It's good. It's going to have an impact. And these are just things that you should consider.
No, I love that. And such a great point to understand what you're getting into. You brought up an interesting point when, you're getting at Men's Health, and that's what, 2008, 2009?
2008, yeah.
Yep. And you mentioned someone dropping something on your desk. And 12 years ago, fitness looked very different than what it is now. Instagram wasn't here. YouTube wasn't a thing. Facebook wasn't a thing. So the main way you got your fitness and training and information, especially before Teen Nation, was the magazines, right? But we also know that the magazines have some clickbaity titles to get you to want to pick up the magazine. It's got, Don Saladino that's shredded. It's got Ryan Reynolds that's shredded. Now that you're away from the magazine world, not that there's not value, right? You were putting it in there, but what's the biggest difference between the information that you're writing for a magazine to get them to kind of get some top level information and the information that maybe you're trying to educate people on now? Or is there a difference?
We're just taking a moment to appreciate Ryan Reynolds. Man, love that guy.
Oh,
so great. Anyways.
We lost all the women now. Every single woman's no longer paying attention to us.
I know. That's fine. You got to give respect where respect is due. I mean.
We'll just put him on top of the video so it's not us. It's just Ryan's abs. And everybody's like.
There you go. You're going to get all your views. The biggest difference now, I would say, is there are a lot more voices in the space. So there's a couple things. Like one, the internet has opened up communication for anyone. So you really need to know what your message is. You really need to know who you're speaking to. You really need to know who your audience was. Before, when magazines ruled the day, and I was there when magazines had the huge hit 2009, and I was there where like we fired like 150 people in a day. It was awful. But like, this is an ever-changing landscape. It used to be a lot easier to just put anything out there and have people read it. And then as the internet came along, it was easy to use clickbaity type stuff. But at some point you have to understand, like, what is your soul? What is your heartbeat? What are you about? You can't be everything to everyone. So understanding your messaging becomes more important. At the same time, what the internet has done is democratize access to information, but it's also democratized the ability to create content without having to worry about pleasing advertisers or other people who are necessarily influencing what might go into a publication or not. And I won't say that was a huge problem necessarily in Men's Health, but it is. Like, you're aware of like where the money came from, especially in that traditional ad model. And I think there's a social responsibility there, but it's a freedom. where you can talk openly, you can question things more openly. The voice of one has given people a voice rather than having to create this like voice of certainty. Like when you wrote for a magazine, you almost always had to write like you knew everything, which fundamentally just bothers me. Or you had to fill a certain amount of space. We had a certain number of pages, which might meant putting information in there that might have ran contradictory to what was in the previous issue. Like one week's tomatoes are great, and the next week they give you cancer. And I'm like, oh, wait, I just had the tomato last week. What's happening? I have to go to my doctor. It gives you much more freedom to be consistent. It gives you much more freedom to speak to people directly. And it gives you a lot more freedom to not play within the rigors of like, what does the brand do necessarily? We all have brands. I represent Ladder, and there's things that are a brand voice. But you kind of know your lane, and as an individual allows you to speak to people. Or if you're an individual, the social platforms, you can talk to people as you, while you can be yourself in the brand, and you can differentiate church and state. And I think that's really important for individuals in order to get information. The harder part, admittedly, and it gets to what we've been talking about the entire time, is it creates a lot more voices. And who do you trust?
Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, you still run a fitness brand, even though you're not primarily the one day-to-day coaching and hustling clients anymore, but you still have a coaching business. Tell everybody about Born Fitness, and if people are like, oh my God, I really love what he's saying, how can they work with your team because they love your message, and what does that experience look like for people who go like, oh, I need more coaching than just like a 12-week program to follow. They want to go jump in.
Right. Born Fitness Coaching is our way to, again, get fired, teach you everything that we know so that you can do it on your own. And it was really, Born Fitness was born out of, Born Fitness was born, that's a mouthful. It was born out of my frustration of men's health, of the people who were just like, you get the workout and it, like your buddy gets like totally jacked and you're still sitting there being like, why didn't this work for me? So it was a customizable way where I really believe that technology has given us the ability to democratize access to great coaches, but to more interaction with those coaches. And while so many people can go ahead and use that, which is still a good thing to scale programs and make great programs available for thousands, there's still going to be those who are like, I need more hand-holding. I need more habits and behaviors. I need a coach to answer my questions. I need someone physically on the other line. And I wanted to have a fitness coach and nutritionist that would be the point person for every single client. So you had your fitness expert, you had your nutrition expert, and everything would funnel down to the individual, all delivered in a way that you can communicate and help them. So to me, it was a way to, in this world of like personalization still matters, create personalization and create human connection. Still believe human connection is so important. And it's not a necessity for everyone, but it does help some people, or it does help remove that stress when you're freaking out. You mentioned it earlier. I think the psychological barriers are so much bigger than the physiological ones, but the physiological ones are real. And we want to give you coaches that can help you with both of those. And as your life changes, as you go on the road, as you travel, as you're eating out at restaurants, sometimes like you can make the best product in the world, but there's no way to prepare for real world variability. You hope that you educate them well enough. And really that's where it should be. Everyone should build a foundation of which they can do. And if you're trying to take that next step, or even if you're trying to get off the ground, I wanted people to have coaches and real-time help. And that's why I built it, and have great coaches. And I also I know that there are so many great coaches out there who don't necessarily want to be restricted to the gym. And I know for a while there are so many women out there, for me in particular, who once they start having kids, their ability to work at a gym becomes limited. And I think accidentally, but it's no joke, there's so many talented female trainers out there. And I think like all the women coaches I've ever heard end up being moms as well. And it was an accident. I wasn't looking to hire them. They just more couldn't find jobs that would work with the schedule of them also being a mom. It's one of those like happy accidents. You create a company because you want to do cool stuff. Then you find out that you could also hopefully be a good employer and give talented people a place to work. And it's fun. And you just get to meet great people because it's all virtual.
I love it. Yeah, guys, if you're looking at this and you're like, okay, I'm hearing what everybody's saying, and you know that you're going to want maybe more accountability, or you need help building that foundation, reach out to the team and get some coaching, get some help, and get some like actual handholding. And not that you're weak because of it. No, you're giving yourself the opportunity to be successful and giving yourself the principles that you can take and run with the rest of your life. Like Adam said, his job is to get himself fired. Right? He wants to no longer be your coach. So if that's a spot that you're struggling with, please reach out to the experts. That's why I have these people on here, is to help expose the best of the best in the industry. So it's not just me, not that I'm the best by any means, but to give you access to those who are doing great shit in the industry, because there are a lot of great people doing great things. And I want those people to be found and get the noise to be less of a impact on our decision-making skills. And then additionally, go check out Ladder Sport. It's my favorite pre-workout. Not a plug, I don't get paid by Ladder, but of all the freaking pre-workouts that like you guys remember No Explode, and you had that 10-minute window before like you had to go to the bathroom, or what was like Super Pump, where you're just like, ah! for like the day. No, like, I mean, the green tea in it, like it's super even keeled. I struggle with my sleep, and it doesn't affect my sleep like coffee does. So I can't say enough great things about Ladder Sport and the quality, NSF certified. Please go check them out if you're looking for a greens formula, a whey protein, a plant protein, an electrolyte formula, or a pre-workout. I think I got all the product lines.
Nailed it.
Yes. So Adam, thank you so much for spending time away from your kids and your wife and your companies to spend some time teaching us and helping us and getting to chat with me. I really appreciate our time and friendship. And just appreciate getting to learn from you. So thank you very much for the time.
Thanks so much, Sam. I appreciate it. This is great.
Awesome, man. Have yourself a great day, and don't step on a Lego.
Yeah.
Have a good day. Bye.